And well, hello there.
Welcome, everybody, to number 79.
Yes, sir.
YMA Chat. Welcome. This is finances, and as you will see in the invitation and on the logo, that we are with a financial coach, Mr. Brian Glenn, and I'm also with Mr. John Yarwood of Yarwood's Martial Arts, and I am Coach Les with Less is More Coaching, and we are here tonight. We're going to delve into some conversations about youth and finances. And one of the things that I'm going to start off with something that absolutely threw me for a loop when I bought a couple of ice cream shops and hired somebody. I hired a young lady who was 16 years old, came in and didn't notice, didn't ask. It wasn't part of my equation when I was interviewing. And all of a sudden, one of the shift lead came into the back and said, "Hey, Coach Les, come here." And I said, What's the matter? She can't count money.
Uh-oh.
And I went, what?
What?
She can't count money. She's not able. She can't. When the register opened up, she couldn't count money back to him. I had to take over. And I went, no way. And sure enough, I listened. And when it came to money, she like turned around and said, "Hey, psst, come here." And the team lead took over. And at the end of the shift, I came up and I said, "What's going on?" And she goes, "Les, I've never used cash ever in my life."
Oh my goodness.
And I went, "What?" She goes, and she puts her wrist up and she says, "I've got Apple Pay. I got Apple Pay and other credit cards and bank cards right here." And she goes, "I don't carry cash.
Never learned it in school.
And I don't carry credit cards." I'm like, and I said, "Well, both of those are good things, I guess." You're not going to get bumped by somebody. I have one of these, fancy, and I'm sure both of you have seen these. I have one of these fancy things called Ridge, and it protects my credit cards so that when somebody bumps me, they can't steal my data.
I got these.
Yeah,
these.
I hate to tell you, buddy, if they just
right, Mr. Glenn.
Yeah.
If they just brush you, though, Mr. Yarwood, in a line, you're toast.
Yeah, mine isn't Ridge, but it's close.
Yep. So, this is, to me, this is a big deal, and I've noticed the math that whatever they're teaching with monkeys and gorillas and jungle gyms in the books, it is not working when they come out to a life where they're working. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about tonight. I just wanted to start off with that, and parents, here's the deal: buy a game of Monopoly or something. I mean, we've taken pennies away from you, so you don't have to deal with pennies anymore.
It's funny you say that. I actually just got done rereading again for like the 20th time Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, sure.
From Robert Kiyosaki, and he has the game called Cash Flow. He's also got Cash Flow. It's 101 and 202, but he's also got Cash Flow for Kids. Yep. And that's kind of what kind of sparked this whole thing for me, is thinking about this. And then my boy's kind of getting into this game too. I've been helping him out. I think it's I never learned it as a kid, right? I knew how to count money. I worked, because I had a retail job, but I never was taught anything about banking, investing, and money, and or any of that stuff. And my mom wasn't very good with it, so that's where I got my information. So I ended up like finding out all this stuff on my own. Like when I started looking for the thing that kind of sparked it was looking for college scholarships, right? And trying to figure out how to pay for college. And I'm like, oh my, there's so much stuff that I don't know, right? So I just personally, that's how I am. I was like, oh, I don't know what that is. I want to go find out, right? And I started digging into stuff. I found Rich Dad Poor Dad. I found oh, well, it's not necessarily financial, but Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. I found Motley Fool, who does the basic investing. All those different things that just I came across in my search, and that's where I learned everything. And then as I've gone, I used all that information to the way it needed to work for me and that kind of stuff. So I'm self-taught 100%. Everything I've done. I've never sat down with a financial advisor. I've never sat down with anybody like that. I've just done it. And but I have a voracious appetite for learning, and that's how I figure stuff out. Not everybody does that or has a desire to.
Well, but you also have something else. You grew up with finances being tight,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum from you, Mr. Yarwood. I grew up with I thought my parents were millionaires. I mean, when we moved to the United States in 1975, we lived in Plymouth in some townhomes, and then all my dad's coworkers at Control Data said, "Oh, you should live in Edina. It's the best school system in the Twin Cities." So here I am in Edina, right? And my mom drove a brand new little Toyota, and my dad drove a BMW, right? I knew it was used, but I didn't know the difference at that age, right? And I worked, and I cleaned my dad's shoes, and I made pocket money, and I did yard duty, and I started a newspaper route at 11 years old, and I had a paying job at 12, right? So, I thought we were wealthy. It wasn't until I was 40 that I found out that my dad went to start a business, and they had to borrow money from my piggy bank to buy groceries one week. Right. So, but I was always, we played Monopoly. We played, my dad was, I think partly I was a liar, and I'll fess this up. My stepmom was, administrative assistant, and she said, "Here, I want you to record what you spend. I want you to write down and keep track of candy and everything else." Friday night, before I could go out, I had to show my receipts and it was all made up. and it happened at like, oh my God, it's Friday. And I come home at 4 o'clock.
He started early in fraud.
Right. And I did my best to figure it out. And my mom and my dad, my mom knew. And she just shook her head. She's like, "Look, if you don't take this seriously, you're gonna suffer."
Yep.
And I didn't, I wouldn't say that I suffered. I just learned. I mean, I had 3 jobs in college.
Yeah.
And I had a brand new car in college, and I lived in a fraternity, and I told my parents, "Thank you very much. I'll pay for my own college." So I paid for my own college, paid for my own car, paid for my room and board, and I worked my butt off. And I was a B student, luckily. But it was super hard. It was, and I look now and I look back and, as opposed to Mr. Yarwood, who was, squeak, squeak, and you can see the cobwebs when he pulls his wallet out of his pocket. Mine, you're looking, it's got freaking elbow grease dripping out of it because it gets used so much. So, Mr. Brian Glenn, both Mr. Yarwood and I have chatted. A little bit about our financial backgrounds. I've done my best now to, kind of turn the dime. And of course, life would show itself. And I had a business partner. And in 2015, that I was stupid. And I gave that person in 2012, gave them 51%. So I could use my 401k to invest in the company. Didn't understand all the nuances, which I know now. And 3 years later, when everything was in the black, and I came to her, we had a car business, a used car business with 100 cars. We had a 38,000 square foot building with 18 businesses in it. And we had a cleaning company that was off the charts. Everything was in the black. And she said, bye-bye, and threw me out with nothing.
Ouch.
And all my credit cards that I had put her on, her and her significant other, to help them build their credit. So I went from being a American Express Platinum since 1985 to being.
That's a hard lesson.
Yeah, but I refuse to declare bankruptcy. I am working it out with the IRS, and I'm going to make it happen. And I could not do what a gentleman wanted me to do, to file bankruptcy. And I said, nope, I'm an integrity coach. That would not bode well for me to do what you want me to do. And so here I am, I got 4 ice cream shops and a business, and we're bootstrapping it and getting it going.
Yeah, you're rebuilding. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean,
you.
I growing up, like there wasn't a lot of guidance as far as it comes to investing or money and stuff like that. My parents were not well off. I lived with my grandparents for a period of time, and they were both teachers and farmers, and so the only thing I was really taught was save everything that you have, but it didn't tell me what to do with it beyond that. So, I think I still have some, savings bonds somewhere, just as, kind of a memorial to my grandparents. But
I was going to ask if you had cans, screw top cans, jam jars full of money.
My great grandparents buried money in the
backyard. Yep.
What?
Yep.
That's awesome.
So I completely understand. And like Mr. Yarwood, I was self-taught. I joined the Army at 18 years old. And, at the time, my parents were like, well, you got to move out or pay rent. And so joined the military. And, I did 6 years with active Army, and then got out, went back to school on GI Bill. Still worked in college. I had 2 or 3 jobs throughout college, and graduated with my accounting degree. Worked public accounting for a few years, and then worked for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and then now doing financial coaching. And so, really, what kind of brought me into this line was, seeing a lot of folks get to their retirement point and not be able to retire. They hit the age requirement, but financially they can't do it. And that's devastating to sit there and tell somebody who's 62, 65, hey, Social Security is not really going to cut it, and you're going to, probably have to continue working. And so I'm just trying to help people is really where it comes down to. And kudos to you, Coach Les, for not claiming bankruptcy, because I think that's also kind of a death sentence. When you look at how long that lingers over your credit, over your ability to do certain things.
So I've used an SBA loan to help, you're done. If you declare bankruptcy, you are no longer an SBA customer, period. And my wife either. So, so it was, and I looked at it and went, you know what? I know I could get out of this. It's just going to take some hard work. And as you were saying, the age thing, I'm just like, well, I'm 63. And my guiding light is Colonel Sanders.
Okay.
I don't know how much you know about his story,
Well, he started in his 60s, if I'm not mistaken. Late 50s or 60s. Was it 70s?
He did not hit it and get going until his early 70s.
Okay.
And then of course, multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
But he was still pedaling and trying to get support late 60s, early 70s, as if he was 30 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
you still got plenty of time.
Exactly. I kind of feel lucky, and I've got a beautiful wife who's, just turned 50. So woohoo!
Oh, there you go. That'll keep you young.
And she is absolutely super healthy. Could do 50 push-ups, 15 pull-ups unassisted, 50 of those little wheelie things with the little handles. Those.
Yeah.
That thing where she could do 15 of those. Even her coach at the gym was impressed because he could only do 12. So yes, I have a lot going for me, and I was in the military as well. I wasn't in as long as you, and I was a no-go National Guard.
Okay.
Yeah, an ROTC, and was very lucky. Missed Grenada by 1 week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they took the training group right before me, and we were all gung ho at that point, like, come on, choose us. So, yeah. Well, that's. So what would you say? So you and Mr. Yarwood are over here. I'm over here, right? Let's see if I can do this right. So what's that? What's some good advice for somebody that's listening to this that says, okay, both of you are on extremes that I'd like to stay away from. How does the normal world work?
Well, I think, kind of to Mr. Yarwood's point, how much do you really want to invest into the knowledge and what you need to know? Because I think if you're just beginning, I think depending on where you're at in life and your job and what is available to you, like a 401k, let's say your company offers a 401k, offers a match, you want to at least be doing enough to get that match, because that's doubling your money, right? So if you're in that situation and you can double your money, you'd be foolish not to. I think the last session you kind of talked about not having a lot of credit card debt, because those high interest rates really defeat the purpose of getting, the average return is 10 to 12% in the market. So having those credit cards at, 18, 20, 25%, you really need to have no debt.
38 now.
Yeah. And it all depends on your credit and things of that nature too. And so I would focus on one, getting that free money, but then beyond that, get your debt paid off, and try to get away from using credit cards unless you're able to pay them off every month. And then, once you get beyond that and you want to do other type of investing, I would say start with just mutual funds first. Start with the basic, an S&P 500 mutual fund, something that's going to match the market, because over time, it hasn't failed.
Yeah, I use the.
So I would say
I use the S&P 500 index fund, and it just tracks the S&P 500, and I've been doing it. I don't know how long, but over the years I'm up like 29%, and just every 2 weeks I throw $100. I just buy however many I can and just keep going. And I have the same thing going for James too. Mm-hmm. So he's got money, I'm investing for him too. And it's a real easy way to it's a start, right? A baseline to kind of get the ball rolling, especially if you don't know much about it, right? I didn't know anything about it till I started, like I said, I read Motley Fool. For those of you who don't know, it's two brothers who wrote a book about basic investing for people who don't know how to invest, and you invest in small company stocks and that kind of stuff. I learned everything that way, right? I don't know all the ins and outs of all the high end investing stuff. It doesn't really matter because I don't have any desire to do that. But learning just basic investing and how to read stocks and understand how they operate and how you can make money. Not a day trader by any means. I mean, that's not investing, right? But if you're going to go for long-term stuff, you start looking for things that are solid and have a great foundation and have a bright future, and just kind of go from there. But I would say the number one thing is just start learning, right? Go talk to somebody like you, a financial coach. Say, hey, this is where I'm at. This is what I got. Where can I go with it, right? And then kind of give some guidance and go from there. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And and I think it scares a lot of people because they think it's risky or it's gambling or I'm going to lose all my money or whatever the case may be, right? And sure, I mean, if you're doing dumb stuff, then you're going to lose your money.
Right.
But if you're doing the basic stuff, the general stuff that kind of gets the ball rolling, and you start to understand how it works, there's no guarantees in anything you do. But if you start, with something that's got a great history, long history, and a great, outlook, then you can start learning from that.
So you mentioned earlier, Brian, and I want to jump on what you just said, Mr. Yarwood, too. When I worked for Phillips Wine and Spirits, originally it was Ed Phillips and Sons, was bought out, and they had an opportunity to get in 401k, right? And they matched 15%.
Oh, wow.
And they would allow you to put 18% in, but they would only match 15%.
Okay.
So one of the warehouse guys, he and I were having Tony, and I'll remember, and I'm going to say his name, right? Tony LaSalvia, because he was a guiding light to me. He owns stock in Berkshire Hathaway. He started buying little tiny pieces, right? Until he finally got a share, right? And, he said, Les, you could put 18% in. And I went, well, I thought it was only 15% matching. And he said, it is, but why wouldn't you put 18 in there if you can? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to, if I don't have it, I'm not going to miss it. It was one of those things where I was making very good money as a sales rep and a sales manager. And the more I made, the more I spent, right? So as I stopped that process by saying, you know what, if my paycheck's $1,000, I'm not going to notice if it's 800. Because I'm gonna that's my budget, right? I don't spend more than I make. So, I took the advice of a warehouse guy, right? And I started putting money away. And that was what it was able to get me to be able to buy that building, right? And do a partnership. Now, yes, I lost it. Yes, I lost $500,000, all of that. I mean, those are the risks we take, right? When we go into business. But I will say that I would have had nothing to put in. I mean, I had almost $250,000 to invest by the time it came that time for me to be able to use when I left after 23 years, and I didn't start in the beginning. So to your point, and Mr. Yarwood's, it's like you get into a company, find out if they got a 401k, get in there. If they don't match it, okay. Maybe they will someday. If they don't, maybe they can't. Maybe they're not in that place. Johnson Brothers was self-funded for their own health insurance. They were $1 billion company, right? They matched really well. And we never had a down year. Every year it was between 14 to 23% that they matched. That was how much. And so it was phenomenal. They made great money. So,
well, and I think you both hit on it too. Is it's consistency over time, right? It's the time value of money to constantly be investing, and the time factor is really what pays the dividends.
Yep.
But the compounding interest and things of that. But you also hit on it too, Coach Les, is if you're paying yourself first, right, and you're not missing it, then you're living on the rest. and
Yep.
I think a lot of people don't look at it that way, but it's and I think the other part I will say is I knew somebody that had invested or done, in federal government, they have several different funds. One of them is called the G Fund, and it's just a straight treasury. So you're making like 2-3%. And he had put all of his money into that consistently year over year. And so he's barely keeping up with inflation instead of something that was a little more keeping up with the market, like the S&P 500, because there's another fund like that. And I talked to him, and when I said, why do you have all this money sitting in this G fund? And he was like, well, that's where it's always been. And I said, well, why aren't you putting it in like the S&P? And he calculated up, and he probably lost hundreds of thousands of dollars just for over that time period that he had only done the G fund instead of, the common stock fund that matches the S&P 500. So,
and it's tough. I think Mr. Yarwood said it. Get yourself a financial planner. Get yourself somebody like you, right? I look at this and I think, gee, at 20 years old, I mean, Mr. James's age, for him, if he says, oh, I'm living off of, let's just say, and I don't know how much he's making, but I'm just going to say, let's say he's making $24,000 a year, and I know he's making more than that, but let's just say it's 24 grand. And he gets a pay raise from his dad, right? And all of a sudden now he's at now he's at 36,000, right? If he's smart and listens to a dummy like me, right? He would go, you know what? I've been living off of 24,000, and I go out with my friends. I spend my money. Let's take that extra 12 after taxes and put it all into funds, and then go, you know what? My next pay raise, I'm gonna keep that, and I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna purchase a new car, or purchase a house, or invest in something that I can, physically, tangibly use, i.e., for get a motorcycle, whatever it is, right? And then the next pay raise, put that one in. Like if you created a stream like that, wow! My janitor and I've been blessed to have some amazing people around me, like that warehouse manager, the janitor at Johnson Brothers was also somebody. He backed up what the warehouse manager said, and if it weren't for him, I would not have done it, right? Because I was on the edge. He's one of those guys, and if you want to read a fun book, it's called The Millionaire Next Door. Making $48,000 a year, his wife making about the same, and they were millionaires.
It's very possible.
Yep.
I think a lot of people don't think it is, but if you start at a reasonable age, between your 20s and 30s, it's very easy to do. It gets a little more difficult after 30 because of the amount of money that you need to invest, but it's very doable.
Yeah.
Yep. So we had a conversation with James on Monday about this because he was talking about wanting to move out and rent. And we decided, we had a conversation with him about actually purchasing a house and starting his journey into what we do. We have, we manage properties. We have 3 rental properties that we own and manage. And it was a really good conversation with him because he had like 4 light bulbs go off along the way. He's like, oh man, and it's super. Now he's excited about it. We put a plan together for, he's already been saving money to do the rental. So he's got a base going already. So we're just working on, I look at it from a standpoint, I want him to learn way before I did. and understand it, because he's 20, and if he starts now, he's already going to be taking over my business at some point. We get him into the investing world and real estate world and doing all this stuff. He's going to kill it, right? So for me, it's an opportunity to give to him something that I didn't have, and the knowledge and all that stuff, and then the support that we can give him as parents for whatever he needs to do. So it's super exciting to actually be able to apply the lessons that I learned in my late 20s, early 30s to my son now. So it's super cool to be able to do that.
I mean, I'll say one thing. It was cool having a brand new VW GTI Rabbit as a junior in college, with decked out, right? But what I forgot and what I didn't realize is the people that were around me, their parents bought their cars, right? So they had no debt, right? And here I am, I'm loaded. I got debt up the yin yang, and I got to work, and I got to work to pay those bills. Now, it was easy because I was making, my in 1983, I made $36,000 that year. But I look back. I mean, I am exactly what both of you would say. Don't listen to Coach Les when it comes. I mean, I took the girls I was dating to the nicest restaurants. Why? Because I worked in formal dining. So I wanted to go eat at a nice restaurant. Well, that was $200. And this is back in the 80s, which is like $500 now.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I spent insane amounts of money.
Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki calls that doodads. They're not, they're liabilities. They're not assets. They're liabilities. They're doodads.
But I look at it, and I mean, I'm not gonna beat myself up anymore. There was a time when I would really beat myself up because I'm like, I can't believe how much money. I mean, one year I kept track of Caribou Coffee. I spent $15,000 at Caribou in 1 year.
Now imagine if you had invested in Caribou Coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, I did invest in it, but I just never got any of the benefits other than now, some people would look at it and go, well, Les, you brought your liquor stores, you brought people that you worked with, you were the guy, right? People knew, hey, Les is coming in this week and he's going to bring me donuts. He's going to bring me a Caribou Coffee, and I'm going to give him a $2,000 wine order versus a $500 wine order that I'm giving to the guy that comes in and doesn't barely do anything, right? So, there's a little bit of this going on, right? But I was on the stupid end, trying to be the magnanimous. Hey, it's Coach Les, new car, now. And my cars were never, like I didn't have a Porsche. I never bought an Audi. I mean, I had the VW, I had a Honda, I had the cars that were, they were just nice, right? But they were brand new. Why did I get brand new cars? I don't know.
It's probably what you thought you were supposed to do, right? At the time.
I justified it by saying I got a full warranty. I got all this. I get a loaner when I bring it in.
The rust proofing, the undercoating.
More doodads.
I saw you coming.
I got it all. When I sold it, I got the best money you could get for selling a used vehicle. Woohoo! Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
So I share all of this with those of you that are listening. I share this because, hindsight's always 20/20. I don't have any regrets. And if somebody wants my advice, I would say somewhere between what Mr. Yarwood has done, what Mr. Bryan is suggesting, and for sure what both of them are suggesting about starting investing 401k, starting putting some money aside right out of the chute. And for sure, when you get that first raise, and some of you are saying, well, Les, I'm religious and 10% of my money goes tithing.
Mhm.
Awesome. Phenomenal. I love that. Tithe first, then with whatever's left over, set some aside and live under your means.
And don't touch it. Don't touch it. Leave it. Let it grow.
And don't borrow against it either.
Yeah.
Which,
Right.
I mean, that's, some of these companies now, they're like, oh, yeah, don't worry. You could, you won't hurt it. You can borrow against it and pay yourself back interest. Just a fancy way of, getting
Taking your
yourself.
Yeah.
So, I do have a question for you, Mr. Brian, and that as we get, I know we're 35 minutes. Dave Ramsey.
Yes, sir.
So Dave Ramsey, love him, like a lot of his ideas. He does not like even mortgages.
Right.
And what do you want to say about that? What do you want to leave? Because, we just spoke to Mr. Yarwood, Mr. Yarwood just spoke to Mr. James, right? They're about to, and for me, the only thing that I know is if you're going to get a mortgage, make sure you can put 20% down so you're not paying that PMI, right? That mortgage insurance. In other words, highway robbery for you not having anything at stake. Over to you.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, if I think having a mortgage is perfectly fine. But again, the 20% down helps you avoid the PMI. I think today with housing prices being what they are, I don't know how you save up enough in the amount of time. And in my mind, if you're going to rent, right, and you're going to put money into something that you're not, that's not appreciating in value, you'd be better off being able to save and invest into a home that either you're going to live in or like Mr. Yarwood suggests, rental properties. That's very feasible. I think Dave Ramsey has some great financial advice. I don't know that it applies holistically across the board. I've done the Ramsey coaching as well, and I can agree with 90% of what he says. I think there's a few areas where I differ, but he's helped a lot of people. I think that's great. But the reality is like I was watching one of the podcasts the other day, and he told somebody, well, if you can save up in 5 years to just buy the house outright, then do that. And I'm like, yeah, but the same house at the first year is going to be appreciating in value over that 5 years. You'd be better off to put the 20% down and bite the bullet now instead of waiting for that home to increase in value, and now you're having to fork out more money. So I think some of it's a little short-sighted, but to each their own. I think he's obviously helped a lot of people, and I won't take anything away from him, but I definitely have differing viewpoints.
For me, Dave, I've done a lot of Ramsey stuff, and I look at it. His audience are people who don't know how to take care of their money, right? It's people who are hugely in debt, both credit cards and cars and all this stuff. So his audience is those people, right? He gets them into that thought process of how to get out of debt and get rid of all that stuff. So for him, talking to them, a house to somebody like that is not a good investment because they're spending all their money on everything, right? So his goal is to make sure they don't have any debt because they don't know how to manage their money. It's not for somebody who already understands how to do it, who's already not in debt, who all that stuff, right? And he said that. He's like, that's not my that's not my audience. My audience is the person who's got $100,000 in debt with cars and houses and credit cards. My goal is to get them out of debt. So nothing against. I mean, I disagree with his mortgage stuff too, because I mean my tenants are paying our mortgages, so I'm not concerned about it. It doesn't, if they foreclose, all right, whatever. But we pay our bills, so we don't have to worry about it. So it's not that it's not good debt. Obviously, I would rather not have any, but we don't worry about it because we don't pay it. Somebody else pays it.
Well, and I think Todd Rooker, who does that podcast on KS whatever WCCO on Saturday mornings, he says buy a home, put 20% down, buy it, and then when you can, take the money that you've got out, if you can take out enough, get a home equity loan, take money out of it, and take that money and invest it in another property with 20% down. And once you start doing this, you basically are using the bank's money to make money for you.
OPM.
Other people's money.
Yep.
And then, as long as you're okay being a property manager and dealing with the headaches of being a property manager.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I look at it as a business coach and I say, okay, be prepared. It is not always easy. I mean, I've heard Mr. Yarwood be pissed off because he's got to go and fix a toilet for the 12th time because they're putting feminine napkins down it. Right.
Replacing faucets.
Because on the package it says you can flush this, which I think is paid for by the plumbers union.
Yep.
It's like I live in a plumber's house. It doesn't have a garbage disposal. And I remember asking the guy, I'm like, how come you don't have a garbage disposal? He says, because I don't need to make work for myself. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
He says garbage disposals, unless you are absolutely anal retentive with how you use it, are a plumber's dream. Yeah. And I replace them every 5 years. It's like cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So why do I want work in my own house?
That's awesome. Everybody has a unique perspective. I hadn't thought of that one.
Oh, Mr. Brian, I have heard it all. And, I think I've forgotten more than I know about how to be wise, and I have not been very wise. And it has taken me a long time to get to the point. And, and I look at some of the people, and I won't use any names, but I'll say this. They are very, very tight. They save money. They find the cheapest thing they can get and use it. And even if they have to replace it every year, they're okay with that. Like, cha-ching, okay, it's $60. Replace it. Replace the whole thing. $60. And I'm like, okay, so I look and I go, well, but if you had spent $180 in the beginning and use something one step up, I'm not saying get the Rolls Royce, but get the one that's at 180. What is your time worth? So there becomes this magic balance. And by the way, I don't have it figured out. And that's why having a financial coach, I'm a business coach, and I have a bookkeeper and an accountant who are my right arm when it comes to finances for my clients, because I know that it is completely personal.
No, it is. It is. And you can't, and that's why I like Ramsey for a lot of things, like the basic baby steps, things like that. But everybody is unique, and have different things going on, have different goals, and I always look at I don't like a cookie cutter approach. You can't just stamp everybody to be in the same mold. It doesn't work. So
and I agree. Like I look at I'm gonna pick on Mr. Yarwood because I know enough to be dangerous. His wife has an amazing job and gets to travel, right? She has a beautiful job, and I'm a traveler at heart. Mr. Yarwood, I mean, we could stick a pin and tie a rope around his ankle, put a bunch of miles on that rope, and he's never gonna leave the yard. And he is absolutely okay with that, right? And
Yep.
I look at that and go, okay, he's going to save a bunch of money compared to me, but I can't live that way.
right.
And, I look and he's extraordinary. He's happy. He's sound, all the rest of it. And then I look at another buddy of mine who has figured out the credit card system, pays his credit card bills every month,
Okay.
and gets points.
Oh, yeah.
And he I can't remember what he did, but he was in some financial business downtown Minneapolis, and he was the senior guy here in Minnesota. And he wrote a book on how to use credit card companies to travel the world for free. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? And he went through a course where I was the coach and I led the course. And we sat down and had coffee a couple times and went out for meals after the class over the course of 4 months. And he shared some stuff with me, and I wanted to leave on this kind of fun high note. And he goes, Les, my wife and I are about to go on a 6-month trip. I'm taking basically a sabbatical from my job. My boss is super okay with it, and he can call me if he really has to. And he goes, and he showed me his itinerary, and he was staying in all 5-star hotels.
Wow.
On cruise liners and on ships and on flights, and everything was first class. And it was all paid for by reward points from him and his wife over 2 decades. Now, that to me was management of credit cards at the highest level. And I said, what do you pay for any of your credit cards? He goes, 0. Like nothing. He goes, I pay him off on the 29th and a half day.
Use the money as long as you can.
And I get huge points. He goes, I bought a car with a credit card and got 100,000 points. Right? Paid it off in 8 days. Right?
I'm surprised the dealership would take it because they've got fees on that.
now they do a lot, right? But this was back, this was, probably 30 years ago when they were not as, they wanted the business, right? So they would eat the 2% or whatever it is. Now everybody's, even restaurants stick it on the bill.
Yeah. Passing it through.
Yep, which I understand. I mean, American Express is the worst. They're 4%. They charge their customers 4% to use money.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for your time. I know we're 19 minutes over.
It was a great conversation.
We've never really. I mean, our goal is always 30 minutes, but it's never been like set in stone that's how long we do it. I mean, if we get into conversations, we just keep going. So it's fine.
And I don't know if you noticed, but I put a bunch of stuff in the comment section.
Yeah.
Jeremy Franklin, a friend of mine, just threw something out on Facebook as a comment. And we've had probably I don't know how to look at it on this. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't have a mouse to click on, but 4 to 5 people have been watching from the various websites where this is shown, and somebody just gave us a thumbs up, and I just really do appreciate your time.
No, thank you. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for the invite.
Yeah, he reached out to me last week after our last podcast and said, "Oh, I would have loved to have been on that one." So I'm like, "Well, let's invite him on. Let's have it." You're our second guest ever that we've had, so
I'm honored. Cool. Thank you.
It's fun.
Yeah, thanks for your contribution, and let us know if you ever want to come back on, and if you I mean, for me, when it comes to finances, I'm always the far left from most people being on the right side of the track. I'm a great example of what not to do. So, and I'm okay with that. I've learned, it's been hard lessons, but I've lived a really good life,
No regrets.
Nope. Well, I don't know. Occasionally, I think I regret going into business with somebody that stiffed me 3 years later. But once again, the highlight of that is I look at it as like I got a PhD in an entrepreneurship that I paid, $300,000 for. A lot of people go to college. A lot of people go to university and get a graduate degree, and they walk out with a $300,000 debt. Mm-hmm. What's the difference? So, Mr. Yarwood, thank you again.
Yes, sir.
And appreciate the opportunity to be part of it. And thanks for the kudos today in our networking meeting. So, Mr. Brian, are you like partially retired then now?
No, not really. I'm still working. So
okay.
I'd love to be retired, but I don't know that I'll ever retire. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yep. Same with me. I mean, business coaching for me, I've coached almost 5,000 people over the last 2.5 decades. And I absolutely, I wake up in the morning excited to work with clients. Mm-hmm. I went to lunch today with a potential couple new clients, and at the end of lunch, they shook my hand and they said, "This is what we want to do this once a month, maybe to get started, and maybe twice a month we'll do the same thing that we just did." And I look and I'm like, was I working for the last hour? And they both laughed and said, "Well, you weren't getting electrocuted, but yeah, you're working." Because they're both electricians.
Oh, that's funny.
So I really do appreciate it. And for those of you that have been watching, and you want to find out something from Mr. Brian, send him, Brian@planforsuccess.coach. Reach out to him. Here's the thing. If you don't have a financial planner, and I don't care how old you are, it's never too late. It's never too late to start. I'm 63 and I just put some money into savings, and people would say, "Well, how come you didn't pay your credit card off?" I said, because a Roth IRA, I had the opportunity. The credit cards are going to get taken care of. They're already on their own plan. And this was an opportunity, and I had the opportunity to put $8,000 away before the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And I can't go back and do that, right? So I took the advice of the person that I'm working with, and he said, "Let's go for it. as long as you get rid of your credit card debt as soon as you can. This is a good move, and do this once a year. So, like you said before, there's varying degrees. So my invitation for anybody that's listening, reach out to Mr. Brian, have a conversation. I'm sure for his original conversation, he doesn't charge you. He's interested in getting to know you and seeing if he can make a difference for you. So
very cool.
Yeah, thank you for the plug. I definitely, if folks want to reach out, you can reach me at this email address, and
we can put it in the chat too.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, throw it in the chat, in the comment stream.
Yeah.
And do you have a website?
Yep, it is actually planforsuccess.coach.
HTTPS ding ding www plan for success .coach.
Yep.
Well, there you go. And
there it is.
Boom. Yep, that just went to Yarwood Martial Arts Facebook, Less is More Coaching Facebook, and YouTube.
Awesome.
Very cool.
So really appreciate it. And by the way, I'm at 38%. Yeah, go iPad.
Look at that.
By the way, I closed everything and I turned the shades on so that I wasn't using as much battery. So I appreciate you. Thanks for reaching out, Mr. Yarwood. We actually, we usually close the ice cream shop at 8:30. And all of a sudden I look up and I go, Nora, it's 8:45. What's going on? And she goes, oh, we're supposed to be closed. I said, uh-huh. So she scrambled and we closed. But, I mean, here's the thing. Even the kids that work here love watching little kids and grandparents eat ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ton of fun. So thank you so much. Thanks for your patience. And Mr. Yarwood, we'll see you not on the mats yet, but we'll see you soon. And Mr. Brian, maybe I'll see you at the next tournament.
State championships.
Awesome. What's that?
I'm not going to your state championship.
Oh, that's right. You got Nevada, don't you?
Yeah, different school.
He lives in Wisconsin, trains in Nevada.
What?
Yeah.
Quite the commute, huh?
So you commute to train?
No, all through Zoom. Our
Virtually.
basement is set up as a dojo.
Oh, got it. Cool.
Yep.
Whereabouts in Wisconsin do you live?
Just north of Madison.
Yeah. Hold on one quick second here. I'm going to do something.